The Great Gatsby Musical was horrible, and I want to talk about why. So, first of all, my stupid little gripe that I have is this right here. Can you guys see that? You will notice all four of the leads were out. Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada were nowhere in sight. And the people playing Jordan and Nick were also MIA. And there was no explanation given for this, no forewarning. During intermission, my mother tried to talk to someone who worked there because she's like that and get some kind of an explanation, and they claimed that it was spontaneous and they had no idea until the day of, which I quite frankly think is kind of bullshit because your four leads don't just spontaneously call out. That's not how that works. And if it does, I feel like maybe we should be informed. I feel like for most shows, this isn't an issue, but with a musical where the selling point is that it is Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada starring, you should really be told if Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada aren't going to be there, I think, before you walk into the theater. If anything, just to ease the disappointment. Yeah, so that sucked. But I'm not gonna harp on that too much and be like, because I understand. I do theater. I understand that these things happen. I understand that understudies exist for a reason, and the understudies were fine. The entire time I was like, damn, I really wish I was Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada, but they were good. They're always good. So that's not my main gripe. That, like, enhanced the badness of the experience, because the entire time while I was watching it, I was like, oh my god, this is shit. I was also thinking, oh my god, I wish that was Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada. And that sucked, because it was like a double whammy of this sucks. But that's not why I hated it. I have, like, big plot structure reasons for hating it, but another reason why I hated it that, like, really pissed off me specifically, and that my family didn't even seem to notice, was the costumes. The costumes. The only good costumes were in the first number. They have these ostentatious, over-the-top, spirit Halloween-esque flapper costumes, which, you know, completely anachronistic. I don't actually care about that, because I expect that whenever you go see something that's supposed to be set in the 1920s, you expect to see these over-the-top, not realistic flapper outfits, because that's part of it. That's what people expect. And yeah, it's fun as hell. But going on from there, I did not see one 1920s silhouette in sight. And I'm just talking about the women's clothing, because men's clothing, it's really hard to fuck up. Men's fashion from that period in general, you know, they had the fedoras, they had the three-piece suits. Some of them looked like they did not fit, but, you know, it's fine. They were understudies, so maybe they didn't tailor the costumes, which, you know, they really should have. You should really tailor all your costumes. It doesn't matter, you know, Gatsby's smoking jacket looked way too big for him, but whatever. Yeah, women, all of the dresses looked disgustingly modern. They had, like, off-the-shoulder sleeves and very tight silhouettes, and, like, ruffle skirts, and quite frankly, it made me sick to my stomach. No cloche hats, not a cloche hat in sight. Actually, I think I did see one background actor walk by with a cloche hat. I was like, oh my god, it's a cloche hat. That was it. That was it. The character that I think was the best with the costumes was Jordan. Jordan was wearing like knitwear, and she was wearing like those long like pantaloon pants that a lot of women wore in the 20s. You could very clearly see the outlines of her undergarments under them, which was unfortunate. They clearly didn't, you know, care enough to make it smoother, but, you know, at least she looked the most historically accurate of all of them. Her hair was too long. Once again, she was an understudy, whatever. But yeah, Daisy was a nightmare. None of her outfits looked remotely 1920s. She had like a Marilyn Monroe thing going on, and a lot of her outfits looked very 30s with their ostentatious patterns and their more like higher waists. There was not a single drop waist in the entire show. I did not see a single drop waist. Editingly here, I got a haircut. Don't worry about it. So I read an article that interviewed the costume designer of the show, and she said that the reason why there was no drop waist dresses was because they're difficult to dance in. So that's fine. That makes sense. You know, people were dancing in them in the 1920s, but you know, if actors these days are little snowflakes who can't dance in drop waist dresses, then that's fine. Still doesn't excuse any of the other absolutely disgusting costume choices that were made. But that one, I guess I can take the L on. Myrtle was the worst, though. Daisy was Daisy was bad. Myrtle was awful. Um, she was dressed in like these like bright patterned wrap dresses with hot pink nails. Hot pink nails. She looked like Paulette from Legally Blonde. I don't know, man. I don't fucking know. And look, it would be one thing if they were trying to go modern, but there was no rhyme or reason to any of the choices that were made with these costume designs. I did not see any sort of cogent themes. It seemed like they were just pulling from anywhere. Just what they thought would look pretty. I just said I loved the stupid looking flapper outfits. I don't actually care about historical accuracy. I care about commitment. And there was not an ounce of commitment to any single costuming choice in this entire production. I don't think I've ever seen costuming that has upset me this much. It was a train wreck, quite frankly. And it makes sense because the entire show was really a train wreck. So I guess now I should talk about the plot. Wouldn't that be something? Talk about the plot. Oh, the music was bad. The music, the lyrics, the songs was also horrible. I think in general there was a complete non-commitment to the time period. You know, I already explained with the costumes and everything. Also, the music, it said it was inspired by jazz. There was an acoustic guitar at one point. The music was not only anachronistic but unmemorable. The lyrics were predictable, the melodies bland. There wasn't even really any harmonizing, or really, it was boring. The songs were just boring. The best song was Myrtle's song. Myrtle, the actress who played her, was incredible, knocked it out of the park, and it was from Myrtle's song onward that I was like, this is the Great Gatsby. You know, she was still dressed like she was from the Jersey Shore, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Anyway, the plot. The people who made this show seem to believe that The Great Gatsby is a tragic love story between Daisy Buchanan and Jay Gatsby. These people are fucking wrong. I will preface this by saying, I read The Great Gatsby my junior year of high school. I'm going into my sophomore year of college now. It's been a little while, and honestly, I didn't even like it that much. I thought it was deeply boring until people started dying. And I stand by that. I stand by that. Okay? But I do think that one thing it had was depth. Depth to its characters, depth to its world, depth to its themes and its symbolism. The musical had none of that. The musical completely dumbed down the plot to a Romeo and Juliet-esque tragedy between Jay and Daisy. That they wanted to be together, but they couldn't because the world was trying to force them apart. It was so sad, and isn't it so sad that they can't be together? And that's not what the book is about. That's not, The Great Gatsby is not about love. It's about greed. It's about greed. It's simply about greed. Love is irrelevant. And just, yeah. So it was like, oh, they've spent so much time focusing on the Jay and Gatsby love story thing, which I feel like I should have really predicted by how much they hyped up Jeremy Jordan as Gatsby and Eva Noblezada as Daisy. Because I have always felt like the main character of The Great Gatsby is Nick, right? The guy who tells the story. You know, our favorite unreliable gay narrator. Well, here's the thing about that. They didn't make him a narrator, and they made him straight. They made Nick Carraway and Jordan Baker straight. I swear, when they first kissed, I literally went, like I was a Roman senator. I was like, At first, I thought they were going in the gay direction because they actually did the party scene. You know, the scene in the book that usually gets caught where that photographer guy at the party at Myrtle's sister's apartment is hitting on Nick. They did that. They made the photographer hit on Nick. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. Maybe it's actually gonna happen. And then they had this moment where the photographer goes and he leans over to Nick and he tries to come on to him. And Nick looks disgusted. And it's supposed to be this funny no homo moment. You know what happens in the books? The books, it's not a series, the book. Nick sleeps with that man. But in the musical, Nick's like, oh, scandalous. It's, first of all, it's just such an outdated thing, this gag of being like, wow, look at these people who are so crazy and out of touch. And one way to show that is to make them dubiously gay. It is a trope that I hate so much, and I feel like I don't see it called out. Ever. Because we're just so happy to see gay people exist at all that we're not willing to bring up the fact that that's not actually representation. Not even good representation. It is not representation. It's comedy at our expense. And we shouldn't allow that. And that part really pissed me off. And, you know, at first Nick and Jordan didn't really seem to like each other. They were trying to avoid Daisy trying to set them up, you know, like they did in the book. In the fucking book. Which I don't even like that much. But it turns out it was just a big will they, won't they. And they loved each other, and they had sex. There's this trend in media to modernize old problematic texts, and time again, all it does is make them worse, is strip them of any kind of nuance that they have, remove them from their cultural contexts, and turn them into meaningless, dated slop. And that is exactly what this musical is. Meaningless, dated slop. Hello, editing Lee again. I switched places. Don't worry about it. I feel like I just sort of need to clarify my point here because I feel like it could be taken out of context and made to seem like I'm anti, um, just fully anti reclaiming problematic texts. I'm not at all. Um, I think specifically when the wealthy and the powerful try to do it, it becomes hypocritical garbage. So, your Barbie movies, your bad Cinderellas, the company revival, um, I think that when disenfranchised people, people who have been, you know, POC, queer people, disabled people, Jewish people, people of other religious minorities, when those people take a text that is exclusionary towards them and make it their own, um, and turn it into something new, I think that often is something really powerful and really cool. One thing I could think of, The Prince by Abigail Thorne. Incredible, really good play. And that is an example of taking Shakespeare's texts and being like, fuck you, it's about transness now because I said it is and I want it to be, and that works great. Yeah, but when rich people do it, it sucks. In trying to bring the Great Gatsby into the modern era, they turned it into a love story between Jay and Daisy. They removed all of the nuance and depth of these characters. There was no mention of Jordan cheating at golf. She was supposed to be this hashtag strong, powerful woman girl boss who didn't want to get married. But then she meets Nick, and all of a sudden she does want to get married. And it's like, how on earth do you think that is a more feminist story? In the book, that doesn't fucking happen. In the book, they are each other's beards. It is nearly clear as day to anyone with half a brain. They break up over the fucking phone. But in the musical, Jordan puts aside all of her ideals and almost marries this man. Tell me, dear viewer, how is that a better version of this story? Even if we set aside the fact that it is 100% gay erasure, how is that a better feminist story? And speaking of screwing over the female characters, don't think I forgot about Daisy. In trying to fabricate this perfect love story, they also removed any depth that she had. There was brief mention of her thing where she doesn't care about her baby, doesn't want to take care of it. That goes away. And until the very end, where, it's necessary that she's called out for not being a good person because that's the end of the book, she is just a sweet, sweet girl who loves Jay dearly and wants to get away from her husband. Daisy Buchanan is not a good person. She never really cared that much about Gatsby. She was bored in her marriage, and she saw a way out. And she saw someone who could give her the attention that she wanted and make Tom jealous. That's it. This is not a love story. It is a story about rich people being fucking evil. But I guess, you don't want to upset your wealthy Broadway audience now, do you? So, you gotta make it into a crowd pleaser, a tearjerker. Except that doesn't work because they kept the ending the same. So then at the end, when Myrtle gets hit by the car that Daisy was driving, because women can't drive. Women don't know how to drive. Nick's like, you're a they're all bad people. And it's like, when were they ever shown to be bad people? Oh, right, they weren't, because you removed all those elements. Because you didn't want complicated characters. You wanted easy to digest characters, because we don't want to tell a complicated story here. Dear God, could you imagine that? Telling a real story in modern Broadway? Please. The only scene that really wowed me in the entire show was Gatsby's death scene. Because the one production element that I loved, that I thought was so good, was the entire time there were these two ladders on the side of the stage, and like tile. It was like, oh, that's the pool. At the very beginning, you see some women crawl out of the pool. It's like, yeah, that establishes that's the pool. And the entire time, you're like, yes, that's the pool. I know what happens in that pool at the end of all of this. And the entire time, it's looming there in front of you. And you're watching this show. And sometimes the ladder blocked my view, but, you could see this pool. And you knew what was coming. And it evoked the tragedy and the inevitability of this story that nothing else in this production did. And then, when Gatsby gets shot, he fell down into the pool. And it looked real. And it was great. And it was a moment of taking something from the page and putting it on the stage in an interesting and compelling way that enhanced the text. And I think that was the only moment in the entire musical that I really felt that. Also, another thing they improved was Wolfsheim. Even though they fucked up everything else, they managed to make Wolfsheim a less anti-Semitic stereotype, which I appreciated. Still don't love what they did with this character. I don't really know what was going on there, but at least he wasn't an anti-Semitic caricature. So that's cool. That was a rare Great Gatsby musical W. 2 thumbs up for that one. Really appreciated that one. You made the female characters worse. You removed the gay of it all, and you created a less interesting story, but at least you removed the anti-Semitism. Also, it wasn't exciting enough either. The ensemble was too small, and I really was expecting, at the very least, to be wowed by the party scenes. And I just wasn't. They were fine. There was nothing super exciting about them at all. I was just bored and annoyed. And it's just the one thing that was most crucial to creating a musical of The Great Gatsby would be to really pull off those party scenes, and they just didn't. Doesn't even really seem like they tried. And I'm not talking about the cast at all. None of this falls on the cast. This is the people who made this show. This is the production itself that is the problem, not the people in it. And usually it's blame the actors. I'm all for blaming actors for most things. They're not at fault here at all. This is a shitty production through and through. Shitty costumes, cheap-looking sets, cheap-looking costumes too. Costumes look cheap. Sorry, they looked cheap as hell. The fabrics looked like they were from Shein. Sorry, a Broadway show with a Broadway budget. Act like it. If you're going to be stupidly expensive to produce, act like it. Please, dear God, act like it. Now, do I have any suggestions? Because, I'm up here talking a whole lot of shit. Do I think that I could make a better Great Gatsby musical? Yeah, actually, yeah. I think it would be pretty damn easy. I think it's very clear that the second The Great Gatsby hit the public domain a few years ago, these people were like, we're gonna make the first Great Gatsby musical. We don't care if it's good, It just needs to be the Great Gatsby musical. I guess they succeeded at that. Cut a lot of corners, but I guess they succeeded at that. So congratulations, it is the Great Gatsby, I guess. Now, how I would have made it better was to incorporate Nick's unreliable narrator-ness. I was really expecting him to monologue. I thought that would be a really great way to put this exposition in there, because obviously when you transfer something from the page to the stage, you don't get exposition, And a lot of the early scenes, it felt like the characters were just talking at each other, explaining things about the world that they should have already known. Nick should have been the narrator that we know him to be in the book. And being that narrator, he should have been unreliable. Because stripping Nick of that role of narrator, of almost like voyeur to all of what was going on, it made him so boring. It was like, why are we following this guy around? Because when you remove Nick's agency as the storyteller, it's like, well, why isn't Gatsby the main character? And it really feels like they tried to make Gatsby the main character. And that's why Jeremy Jordan was Gatsby. When, in my mind, I was like, why are we advertising who's playing Gatsby and not Nick? And that was kind of the first moment that I was like, something stinks with this. And I saw it and I was like, yeah, something really stinks. So that would be my main advice, would be to bring back Nick's power of the narrator, of the unreliable narrator. Make him gay again. Make Jordan gay again. Bring back the part where she cheats at golf, because she's not a good person. None of these people are good people. Make it more clear that Daisy is just fundamentally materialistic and doesn't actually care that much about Gatsby. You could even, if you want, to bring in the stupid feminist BuzzFeed pop feminism bullshit, make Gatsby more of a stalker, and then throw in a line of like, wow, he's stalking you. He's like love bombing you, girl. He's gaslighting you. Do that. There you go. There is your neoliberal crowd-pleasing bullshit. And you didn't even have to change anything about the text. And instead you did all of this. And you made a bad show. I think that's all I have to say. I don't know if any of this was coherent. Maybe I should have written a script. But I think I got most of my points across. I think my main points were costumes were shit. It's not a love story. They made Jordan and Nick straight. They removed the agency of the female characters by trying to make them morally pure. Tom wasn't evil enough either. That could have been solved by having Nick as the narrator, because when Nick describes Tom, he describes him like a beast. And I didn't really get that vibe. A lot of the time it was like, he's the straight man of the group. He's the reasonable one. And you don't want to feel that way about Tom fucking Buchanan. It's 11:30 at night. I just got home from seeing the show, and I sat down and I was like, I need to talk about this or I think I'm gonna explode. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. I really, really like ranting about things that are bad. I feel like I'm glad I saw this because it was so bad. I really, almost like, as much as I enjoy watching something that's really, really good and dissecting why it's so good, I also love watching things that are really, really bad. Not necessarily like bad movies or low budget things or anything like that. I love pieces of media with fundamental political or other storytelling flaws. So I actually really am glad that I saw this, because I'm glad that I have something to complain about, and that I have something that I have incredibly valid criticisms of that I can complain about now. But yeah, costumes were bad, sets looked flimsy, um, music was horrible, lyrics were horrible, book was horrible. I don't know, do I have anything else to say? The Great Gatsby isn't a love story, and Nick Carraway was gay. Goodbye.